Welcome to Leading from the Heart, podcast number 2 with my co-host, Dan Marston, sponsored by the Moksha Group. And our special guest today was Sara Stock from Stock Legal. The purpose of this podcast is very simple. It is to inspire people around the world to continue to lead and from their heart, from a place of love, of courage, of tenacity, to not give up in difficult times or when we face resistance. And during this podcast, we interview people that inspire us, that we work with, that we know, that we've had a connection with, to tell their story, to give us nuggets of wisdom, of actions that we can take to try to bring into our own lives, into our workplaces, so the world can be a better place. And so the sponsor of this podcast is the Moksha Group. And Dan Marston and I, as well as my husband, Sheila Pride, we are a small firm that is committed to creating conscious companies, heartfelt leaders, by really manifesting the power of compassion, of gratitude, of heart-based leadership, of coherence. And so we train everyone from the C-suite all the way through an organization. We work with dysfunctional teams. We work, I should say, just regulated teams. We work to bring people together so that their best selves can shine. Profit follows, of course, but more important than that is that we live a more joyful, heart, purpose-filled life. And so to know more about us, you can research themokshagroup.com. But we are here today to feature Sara Stock and to have an interview with her. So let's start by hearing from Sara and also just telling us a little bit about yourself, about your company, and we'll move from there. So welcome, Sara.
Thank you. Thank you guys both so much for having me. I am so honored to be in the category of people that inspire the two of you, because I look up to and have worked so hard to try to bring my team along to many of the qualities that both of you embody. So thank you so much for having me today. I'm excited to share with you and with the audience a little bit about the businesses that I've built. And speaking of those businesses, I currently have two. Stock Legal, which is a law firm based in the Central West End that provides legal services to small to medium-sized businesses. And then I co-founded a second company called Legal Back Office that provides back office services to small to mid-sized law firms. And I have now been building companies for almost 8 years, which is unbelievable. Before that, I was an equity partner at a large regional law firm here in St. Louis. And, you know, there was a really fun journey that ultimately led me to starting my own businesses and trying to figure out ways to do things a little differently in the legal world.
Yes, and that's one of the things I would love the audience to hear from you. I know Dan and I were both really inspired with your story as an attorney. And I know when we both interviewed and talked to your team, we had this greater compassion for really what lawyers go through. I was surprised to see how many traumas, little T's and big T's, lawyers go through, not only to get through law school, but also what they face in firms. And a lot of what lawyers face, I found, is the opposite of what creates thriving teams, healthy individuals. And so I know we really want to hear from you about, if you don't mind sharing your personal story and what that awakening moment was when you decided that you wanted to do something different. So if you're comfortable, please share your story.
Well, let me level the playing field a little bit for the audience, because I have to assume that at least some percentage of them are not currently lawyers. So there are certain personality characteristics that lend themselves well to successful lawyers. You have to have a type A personality, and you have to have some sort of an ego, right? You're either in court advocating zealously on behalf of your client, or you're negotiating zealously for your client if you're negotiating documents. And so there's a certain personality type that, you know, to be successful as a lawyer, you really have to bring those skills to the table. Perfectionists really struggle with, well, a lot of things, but the biggest in my experience is the willingness to make a mistake And then once they've made a mistake, owning the mistake, right? And I share that because in your typical law firm environment, most young lawyers feel like they're constantly walking on eggshells because if they make a mistake, it is the end of the world. And, the thing that always lands with me is we are all human, right? As humans in learning something new, we inevitably will make mistakes, right? And so one of the things that I've been trying to build as a culture is a supportive environment that allows people to make the natural mistakes that you make when you're learning something new in a way that clearly does not commit malpractice, because yes, that is a thing in our profession, but allows people to feel safe to make those little mistakes as they're learning, as they're growing, as they're building their skill set to really be successful. So that's really the easy one. Getting people to check their ego at the door is really hard, right? And so part of why Moksha was such an important opportunity for me and for the team that I have was that, if you can't check your ego at the door, how do you get coherent when having conversations either with clients, with opposing counsel, and as the firm is growing with each other, right? I mean, we're trying to build something beautiful and amazing here. And we're all going to have really strong opinions on what that looks like and how to build those things. Everybody thinks that they're incredibly valuable and they should make all the money, but how do we negotiate between each other what the highest good is to build the firm in a way that allows us to be calm and coherent and to think clearly. So that was, incredibly important to me in trying to figure out, what got us here won't get us there as we grow. What are we missing here to get us there? Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I just want to honor and draw out a couple really important things that I think you mentioned. It's like, one, we hear check your ego at the door, and it's really hard to do because those ego defense mechanisms are like hardwired in us. And whenever we feel failure, or we feel like we're not good enough, or we feel criticized, or even we just receive coaching or feedback, those defense mechanisms can come full force, super strong. And then we're in fight, flight. And in that moment, it feels like life or death. And we want to win. In order to win, someone has to lose. And so that's kind of inherent in the lower brain. So part of, I think, learning neuroscience and learning how to get coherent, prepping, because I know you do some prepping so the lawyers not only can have those meaningful conversations, but also have a good life. I've been really shocked to see the rates of suicide, depression, alcoholism, not just lawyers, but in general, executives and professionals. But I have a special compassion for lawyers now that I didn't have before, because I didn't know how important having a leader who gets that and is trying to create an environment where everyone's wisdom can come up, but in a way that we can kind of be bigger than our defense mechanisms, right?
Yeah. And I'll just riff on that for a moment. One of the intentions in my life has always been to bring equanimity to all situations. Be it personal, professional, what have you. And I understand that there are some people that are born with the equanimity gene, and that is amazing, right? I'm not one of them. I am incredibly passionate about things, and I give all of myself to those things. And so it has been a lifelong journey for me to find and build tools that will create equanimity for me. So it is, everything you said is spot on, Sheila. I mean, when we fear failure, especially for type A risk averse lawyers, all of the defense mechanisms come up, right? And if you're a leader that's open to growth, the first thing that you do is say, well, I must be doing something wrong. Let me internalize that for a little while and really, sit with it. and see what's coming up for me, not necessarily even recognizing, at least I'll speak for myself, I don't always recognize that it's defense mechanisms coming up, right? And so, to really kind of level the playing field, trying to find those tools that bring coherence, that create equanimity, allows for meaningful, important conversations to be had in a way that everybody feels heard, everybody feels like their needs are being cared for, and that, my goal is always to build a solution that is the best thing for everyone, for the firm, for the vision, for where we're growing. And so, yeah, those tools are so important.
One of the things that you mentioned that is, I would say, prominent for a lot of the people that we work with, especially executives and people that are highly functional, high performance people, the perfectionists, type A, prominent ego, right? Many of these things that can really keep us behind a mask, so to speak. But what I really loved about working with you and your team was that you were so willing to be vulnerable, so willing to you welcomed the hard feedback because you knew that was required to grow. And so what I'm really curious is what was it about your journey? What were some of the catalysts along your journey that allowed you to be able to learn to check your ego, to be able to do what was best for community rather than just individual? And so what were those things that really allowed you to be able to be in a position where you're now running a firm where you're literally welcoming your feedback and sharing it publicly with your whole team?
Yeah, wow, that's a great question. One that I've never really thought about either. And so, but I'm so glad to have the opportunity to think and talk about it because, I think it's a really interesting lens to put on when I think about my journey to get here. I would say this, I am the first person in my family to go to college, clearly the first person to go to law school. I wanted more than anything when I graduated from law school to have that big firm job because to me, that was the check mark for success, right? So when I got that big firm job, I was so grateful for the opportunity in a way that, the kids these days just aren't, right? I was so grateful to have a seat at the table, to be considered an associate at this firm. I think I went into it not really feeling like I deserved to be there. And so it gave me such a sense of gratitude that it opened me to wanting to show them that they made the right decision, that I am the right person for this job. And I remember, as a young associate, it was hard at a law firm to really get feedback on the projects that you were given by the attorneys. And so I would go around and knock on people's doors and say, hey, I did that project for you a few weeks ago. Do you have any feedback for me? I want to learn. I want to grow. And through that process, you have to kind of hear, you have to hear often, you kind of suck, right? Like you're a young associate, you don't really know what you're doing, but you did these couple things well. But that was how I got better, right? I needed someone to tell me where I screwed up or what I didn't think about in drafting an employment agreement or a real estate purchase agreement or an asset purchase agreement. You don't get better without that. And I had some amazing mentors along the way who gave me really wonderful, candid feedback that I took and figured out how to improve upon how I ran conference calls or engaged with clients. And, I think working in a bigger firm environment teaches you to have a really thick skin, which is good and bad, right? In a number of ways. But the good that came out of it for me is that it's really hard to offend me. It really is. I want to know all the things so that I can always be better. And I think that applies both personally and professionally. What is my best life? What is my best self? How can I continue to work to grow into my best self? And that's different every day. So that's a great question. I love that.
Yeah.
Question.
Very good question, Dan, because I have to say when we approached Sara about doing this work, we say part of it is just like radical accountability, radical honesty. We interview your team. We share an anonymous feedback report. And anytime people are asked, they say all the hard things because the brain has that negativity bias, but also we're asking for ways we can get better. And I never in my whole life have I ever had a leader take the feedback so well and learn and be curious. So props to you. I can tell you were conditioned for that, but it does make me want to just, there's a couple of things you did that people could do that make a difference. So part of it is like thick skin, right? We're either kind of born with that or we grow into it. But another thing you did is we call the neuroscience talks about when you pull feedback towards yourself, we have a sense of control because we have two things we need. We need to be loved how we are, and we need to grow and get better so we can achieve better results, right? So we got to have love and belonging, and we have to get better, and we have to feel psychologically safe when we do it. So you had a buffer of a gratitude mindset, right? So that comes through practicing gratitude. So that already puts you on propensity to be able to be coherent. Two, you asked people for feedback, because what we traditionally hear in corporations and law firms is like, when you screw up, you just don't get any more work, but you don't get specific coaching or feedback on how you can do better. You're just kind of, your livelihood gets potentially threatened, and then maybe you quit, right? And so what you did is before it was even a thing, you were literally soliciting, making it safer for yourself psychologically, showing growth mindset to other people. And the literature shows people who pull feedback regularly make it safe for them and others. Their success, their learning curve goes, is much quicker. And then they learn to recover from feedback much quicker. So that wasn't just happenstance why it happened, because you were actually doing some behaviors that made it possible for you. And now translating those things now to your team, right? Is the work now, not just with you, but amongst each other. So I'm curious if you can share a little bit, building on kind of Dan's question, how do you facilitate these heart teachings, what you've learned to this sometimes younger generation, or people who may not on your team who have done as much personal transformation work on their own, right? And so just, sharing a little bit about the challenges of that and the breakthroughs that you might have had along the way.
Yeah, well, that's a great question too. And I'll be very candid. I really struggle with that part of it. There's a part of me that thinks, well, if I know this, everybody's got to know this, right? And one of my learnings in my 40s has been, just because I know it doesn't mean everybody else knows it. And you have to really work to meet people where they are in life in so many ways. And so, I talk to my team a lot about, the vision of the firm. I talk to my team a lot about, understanding how I can build a great law firm, but I can't build a great law firm without their feedback. They're the ones on the ground in the trenches working with clients. And so I tend to be a leader that models that behavior and, tries to really through in modeling, talk to them about it. And because it's not one of my strong suits, we brought Moksha in to help facilitate that. So, that's, know your weaknesses, right? And this is one of them for me. I can bring teachings to the team, and I've brought growth mindset teachings. I mean, that was a revolutionary concept, 5-7 years ago. And bringing growth mindset teachings to the team, this is it, this growth mindset, this is how you stay open, not closed, not become fixed in your beliefs about the world or the way we do business. We talk about those things, but the one-on-one mentoring and teaching my journey was such a personal journey that I struggle to extract lessons from it that I can really coach the team through.
Yeah, well, I think you're maybe not giving yourself all the credit that we've seen you in action and the things that we feel are your superpower. And Dan, I'd love you to add in after I speak if there's something around this, but it's the vulnerability, the heart's desire. I've seen you say, we are prioritizing culture, even over skills and ability. And research does confirm, if you hire for, across the board skills and ability, if you compare outcome and productivity and growth of a company, there's like a 60% increase if you hire culture, which means for culture, creating an environment that's coherent, where there's ease, there's less triangulation, there's more like ability to share and speak in a way that honors the gifts and lights of others, and to reconcile communication. Some people are very oriented out of survival to be disruptors, even, and triangulate in order to feel safe, right? That's just that can kind of inherent. And so a few things I think that you stand out in, and what I've seen as a leader, is you understand the significance of culture and hiring for culture, also skills and abilities, but bringing people along. The other thing that I've noticed that you do is you give a lot of humility. And so you do not throw people away, even people that other people would throw away in a second. You give second chances. You have the hard conversations. You allow for repair. You can say, I'm sorry, and you do that by having this big mind vision of what you want. And you're always inviting people to join you and having people come in. And those are really unique qualities about you that I think, we don't have to kind of train that. It's just partnering with you and then creating shared experiences so that you can get these humans in our group face to face and just show up as full, authentic human beings. And I think in our offsite together, just in a half a day, we were able to start that unfreezing process, that healing process of saying, we are more than our role. So I don't know, Dan, I'd love you to join in here around, how you've kind of seen Sara and her team.
Yes, please. This is great. We could do this for the rest of the podcast.
Well, I think it's really important because it's really, you embody a lot of traits that a lot of people have, but maybe they aren't acting upon them. Like, one of the things that I really love about you is that you are a visionary, and you hold the vision of what you know is true and what is possible. And you will do anything to make sure that it happens, because you know that it's not just good for your company, you know that it's good for the world. Yeah. And so you have this courage to, like, even if things have to fall away along the way to get there, like, you believe in it and you see it, and, you're willing to fight for it. And so, one of the things that it makes me really curious about is, because I know there's a lot of leaders out there that maybe are doing something that they're not aligned with. Maybe they're their own parallel to the big firm, where, they're having to thicken their skin, and maybe they're having to give a part of themselves away that doesn't feel in alignment anymore. And so I guess I'm curious, because I know that there's other people that we could speak to, that it's like, how did you overcome, that that feeling of safety and gratitude for finally making it excuse me, to the big firm, to then make that leap, to then say, all right, I see that I can create something even better in the world, and I'm going to do that by creating Stock Legal.
Yeah. Well, first, thank you both for the kind words. I very much appreciate it. I was sharing with someone recently that, and I know that this will resonate with a lot of people listening. When I was at the big firm, I felt like I had my work persona and I had my home persona, right? And part of the reason that I had two personas is that my home persona wasn't really someone that I wanted work people to know existed. I was a little bit of a wild child when I was younger, and there was a lot of drinking and dancing and partying and all the things that we do when we're in our 20s, right? But at the office, I was stoic and responsible and, very organized and, kind of boring. And so never the two shall meet, right? And in order to merge those two personas, I had to do a lot of work on myself first, right? I always talk about how, Brené Brown literally changed my life a decade ago with her book, The Gifts of Imperfection. It challenged all of my core beliefs in a way that shook me to my core as a human, and continues to, even still today, challenge my beliefs and my values, which I love. And so in leaving the big firm and in starting my own practice, all of that happened to coincide with the work that I was doing on myself. And it allowed me to be really proud of the person that I was becoming. And instead of having two personas, there was just me, right? This is who I am. This is what I believe. I'm really proud of the person that I've become and am still becoming. I know who I am. I can stand in my truth. And once I was able to really solidify all of that inside of me, it allowed me to show up authentically as who I really am in the business that I'm building. And so the business that I'm building became an extension of who I am, what my core values are, what my vision is for the legal service delivery model and the way that I work with clients. And, if in no other way than by demonstrating through example, I'm showing my lawyers how we care well for clients, how we communicate with them, how we have the hard conversations with them, how we talk about money with clients, right? I mean, that's such a weird taboo thing. But, if you don't talk about it up front, you end up with all of these problems at the end, right? Those, I hate to use the phrase crucial conversations because, but they're crucial conversations. And how to have the courage to know that, you're standing on solid ground while having those conversations. So to answer your question, Dan, it was a journey of self-integration that ultimately built me into the leader that I am today. And that's such a dynamic place to be because we are constantly growing. If we're doing it right, we're constantly changing. And so, the person I am today isn't the same person I was 2 years ago, won't be the same person I am 2 years from now.
Yeah. One of the things I'm recalling that I think, I've seen as a leadership coach is like leaders are like, as you walk up the power position, it can be some of the most isolating experiences. And,
yes.
Depending on where you sit impacts what you see. And so whether it's handling the budget, looking at benefits, whether it's looking at client structure, all those things, it's so important to seek that support and connection because it can be a very isolating place and we can feel attacked on all sides when we're trying to create transformation, change, have to hold hard lines. All of those things create kind of this movement from internal. And so I've been really impressed. Maybe you can speak to this. Some of my moments that I've been most inspired by you and your team and your moments, your transformation moments, is like sitting with all the intensity of emotion, of pain that often comes from past, right? And it's getting re-triggered and confirmed. But in the moment, how you've been able to notice and witness, to kind of turn down the volume of that intensity, to access your heart wisdom. That's part of this. And so you're in a group of people, subjects are tough, right? And then maybe there's history of wounding, that we have even when a client comes in and is very dysregulated. In those moments, how have you and maybe with your team been able to create a new outcome than what we call the reactive brain? And I know you're expert, like I've seen you do this, not only when I've been present, but in hearing stories. So any tips you can have for leaders on how to, one, break the isolation, to keep doing this work, and two, how to create this strong coherence and how that ripples out to the outcome of those crucial conversations.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I have so many things that I want to say. Let me try to organize them in my brain.
Sure.
First and foremost, when you are building a company without a partner or a co-founder, it is an incredibly isolating experience, hands down. And so when I was really deep into that feeling, I reached out to my network because I have the most amazing supportive network of people who not only refer us clients, but that help me grow when I'm struggling. And they first sent me to Vistage, which is an amazing organization that helps build an advisory board around leaders. I've also been a part of CEO coaching, having a business coach that is it's a business therapist. I mean, like, I don't know how else to say it, right? It forces me to reflect in advance of our meetings. It creates some accountability. And I feel like I have a partner in working through some of my issues. I recently joined EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, where they have forums of other business owners. So, community and connection, right? How do we as business owners create community and connection around ourselves to help us as we navigate all the different things that life throws at you, right? Be it personal or professional, and do it all while running a company and developing people and being a parent and a friend and a daughter and what have you, right? So I wanted to be sure to speak to that. How in those moments do I access my heart wisdom? So I have to say two things. I know that most people are born with a negativity bias. I think that I've been gifted with a positivity bias. It's like the entrepreneur's curse, right? I see the possibility and opportunity in everything. And so in those tough situations, even where things are starting to go downhill, I can usually see the possibility of the conversation. I can see how if we can come together, if I can bring people together, that this is something that we can work through. I believe there are very few issues that can't be resolved if everyone shows up open and willing to find the path forward instead of their path forward. So there's definitely that. And then I would say, there's a lot of trial and error that is just such a blessing to someone with a growth mindset. I've done it wrong so many times, right? I've screwed up. I've added fuel to the fire instead of, trying to, bank the fire or cool down the fire. I know as a parent that I set the weather for my children, right? If I'm in a bad mood, it radiates down to them. If I'm in a good mood or I bring good energy, it brings them up. And so, if I can match the energy in the room, if I can bring the energy up in the room if it's low, if I can be open and try to take down the level of anxiety in the room by having coherence, by having a regulated nervous system, it radiates out in a way that I know science has currently explained, but I probably don't know all the details. But it's been a lot of, making big mistakes, trying to learn from them, knowing what not to do, and trying to, create that equanimity that we've been talking about.
Nice.
So one of the things I'm curious about, and this is something that I am constantly looking at for myself too, because I feel like I often have a positivity bias. And so I'm wondering, like, how you personally have found the balance between the positivity bias and then also being vulnerable and knowing when it's okay to share. Because, like, I know that you're the type of leader that, like, you just bring in the type of energy and the light to the room. And so, like, when is it okay for you to show your vulnerability or to ask for help? And I'm just curious how you've managed that and how you go about that.
Yeah, that is it is an ongoing challenge for me because there is a part of me that is very stoic and believes that if I'm shaken, then the team will think the world is ending, right? And so it is a really fine line between being vulnerable, asking for help, and not, shaking the trust or the belief that the team has in me as a leader. And I found simply that when I show that I'm human to the team, right, when they see that, I'm also struggling just like they are. I don't have all of the answers. And so when I'm asking for their feedback, I'm genuinely interested in it. Or that I am overwhelmed and I need help and, we need to build a different process or delegate duties in a different way. It is such a gratifying experience for me to watch them all show up, right? To know that they have my back, to know that they believe in the vision, that they want this firm to be here in 5, 10, 15 years, that they're willing to contribute and go the extra mile. But, the thing I had to learn the hard way is that until I can be vulnerable about what I need and how I'm feeling, I steal the opportunity from them to jump in and help, right? To support. So, that was a beautiful lesson.
Yeah.
I love
so beautifully said. Yeah, that was one of my biggest lessons that I've recently learned is that by not sharing my vulnerability until it's kind of dealt with and packaged in a box, by not giving people the opportunity to help me as I help other people, it really is, like, as you said, it robs them of the opportunity to expand and to grow and to also, help someone else to help me. And so, yeah, very well articulated.
Oh, thank you.
I want to add, I think that's, really a significant point, because there's a balance of we don't want to overshare and create kind of a lack of faith and trust. But what I typically see, rarely does a leader overshare unless they're having a complete breakdown, right? Or they have big traumas. But typically the undersharing is the kind of unraveling of trust, and also leads to stories being created. There's so many stories being created in a family or that are absolutely not true, but they're based on fear. And it's because there's an absence of authentic information that has occurred. So I was just thinking of a leader I worked with, and I did his feedback report from his team. And there were so many stories and games that were kind of being talked about this leader back and forth. I even hated to give the leader the report because it was not true. And the leader was kind of a new leader leading a function, would come in, and his wife was going through treatment for cancer. He was traveling all over the place, flying to China and back, getting in very little sleep. He mustered all of his strength just to show up at work every day, and took all his energy to walk through the office and get to his desk where he closed the door. Now, nobody knew what was going on in his life. He's in a new department, protecting them from all of that, right? And the stories they told about this leader were pretty cruel, actually. And they made a game of it to see how hi, how are you? And just to see if they could get, and when we did the team session, we brought people together. He read that report. And he realized that without him telling the story, people fill in, and they usually don't give them the benefit of the doubt. They make up a narrative that says, this person's wrong, they don't love me, they don't care about me, and now I'm going to punish them by talking shit to anyone who will listen. And also, so I love this point because I think it's another actionable thing all of us can do. When there's stuff going on that from our personal or professional, just prepping people to say, hey, I'm going through this period of time. You don't need to, worry. But if you see my tiredness, it's because I have a new baby. If you see my stress, it's because I'm really worried about my wife right now. And here's a couple things you can do to support me. One, don't take it personal. Could you be more flexible around rescheduling appointments this 2 weeks? My wife's in her worst form of chemo at that time, and I need to be there. So not only telling the truth, people will feel it, even if you don't speak it, and they will make up stories that aren't true. And then also giving yourself permission to ask for what you need, because if people don't have a way to contribute, they might try to contribute in a way that you completely miss. Then they feel resentful. So I think this is an important, tangible thing, that vulnerability, the honesty. And if you speak it in a way that's coherent and true, you actually access this greater part of corporate, is belonging, caring more and more than just about the product and the customer, but about, can we create this space where it feels good to show up at work? And one of the things I've heard you say at every meeting and every interaction we have, you said, I'm not there yet, but I want to create a place for people to come up and show up and do their work hard, but feel cared about. And also you're doing a personal development journey. So just because you set the container doesn't mean people show up with the capacity. But one thing I see, you're investing in your team, and you're willing for people to learn how to do that. because it's not enough for you to do it. You're creating a space and container for people to learn and grow as they get better. And that is investing in people. So I just want to share that,
I love that. I mean, that's, the whole reason that this firm exists and has grown in the way that it has, or that I've continued to put the energy into growing it, is really to create a place where we can help amazing clients grow and scale their businesses, right? A rising tide lifts all boats, and small to mid-sized businesses are the backbone of America. But also to create a place where lawyers can come and work, feel seen, feel heard, find a balance between their work life and their family life, still do amazing, complicated, interesting work, right? But grow as humans, grow as employees, grow as counselors, grow in creating better and stronger relationships, both at home and with our clients and with their team members. That's the part that lights me up. I could be a lawyer anywhere, right? I mean, law firms are hiring like crazy right now. Many firms have offered to buy this one. I could do a number of different things, but I stay here and I do this for those reasons. And, I think part of it is self-interested in that that's what I want out of life. I want to continue to grow. I want to continue to, be a better version of myself every day. I want to learn how to be a better businesswoman. I want to learn how to be a better lawyer. I want freedom and flexibility. And if I can figure out how to do that for myself, I want to be able to share that with the lawyers that work here, because it is truly freedom. But before I forget, I want to go all the way back to something that you said, Sheila, about vulnerability. Because I do think that there is still a misconception in the world that vulnerability equals weakness. That's being dispelled in a lot of ways. There's lots of Instagram posts about it, right? But generally speaking, I do think that there is still a view that vulnerability equals weakness. So I want to go on record and say for the 1,000th time that it takes more courage to be vulnerable than to do anything else, right? And so vulnerability is courage. Vulnerability is the opportunity to say what you need instead of having to carry all of that load on your shoulders. It creates the opportunity for people to jump in and help and support you. And, the more diverse thinkers that you have making a decision, the better the decision is, the better the outcome is. So it creates the opportunity for a better outcome when you share the problems with the team. And it creates the opportunity for buy-in from the team on the solution, right? Because you're not making it in a vacuum and just announcing to the team that this is what's going to happen, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I have an idea, but I want to hear from Dan first. If there's
Yeah, well, I think what's really, really cool to look at is your case study for Stock Legal is that I think there's often this misconception that success and, like thriving, connected, vulnerable, open, fun culture are mutually exclusive, right? And so, I think that it's important for people to realize, like, knowing that you put so much energy into your own personal development, put so much energy into culture and really encouraging people to be vulnerable and leading from that place, right? That this doesn't result in like a business that's not profitable. And so I'm just wondering if you'd be willing to share any of the accolades or success that, has come along with your business. And I know it's still growing, but is there anything that should be spoken to about how these things are not mutually exclusive?
Yeah, no, thank you for that opportunity. The firm has grown from, me and about 100 clients to 15 lawyers, several thousand clients. We signed 50 engagement letters just last month. I mean, it is validation for me that we're doing something right in the marketplace, and continuing to grow, continuing to be profitable, continuing to offer more benefits to the lawyers that work here, continuing to offer more services to the lawyers that work here. So we definitely have seen a level of success. I do think there was a gap in the market, right? And we needed to figure out how to meet that gap in the market. It was really hard to find sophisticated legal counsel at a price you could afford as a small to medium-sized business before we existed, right? And then I had to figure out how to get the amazing lawyers in the door because they're the ones counseling the clients. So in order to do that, we had to really focus on culture. How do we allow them freedom and flexibility in the number of hours that they choose to work every year? We put everything in the cloud from day one so that lawyers could work remotely. COVID wasn't a thing for us when it came to work. We were able to just continue with our daily practice. And so, there was definitely some thinking outside of the box, especially 8 years ago. It was revolutionary to let people work remotely. It was just not, FaceTime was still very important in the legal world. You had to be in an office to actually be working, right? So, there was a lot of thinking outside of the box that happened 8 years ago to build the firm into, who and what we are today and how we work. And it's never ending work, right? As the job market shifts and employees have more leverage, how do we continue to attract amazing lawyers? As our clients have different needs, as the legal service delivery model changes, how do we continue to do that, right? And it's a never-ending process. It really is. If you're doing it right, and with that, at least I feel like if I'm doing it right.
Well, one of the things I'm sorry, Dan, go ahead.
Well, and I just wanted to also say, wasn't there also a recent recognition publicly about Stock Legal?
Oh yeah, I mean, there've been a few. One of the fastest growing law firms in town. I was named one of the Titans of St. Louis. Not really sure what that means, but I'll take it. We were just given an award as like one of the future companies to watch. I think Best Boss was in the list as well. So there's been some really awesome recognition. It's really hard to grow a law firm. That's why a lot of people don't take that on as a challenge in life. And so I'm really grateful for the recognition that this has been a hard work uphill battle, and we're here. We've kind of like done a thing, right? And now how do we continue to grow and not just rest on our laurels? That's my current challenge.
I want to draw in something Dan mentioned earlier, but I think it's relevant. Sometimes, like right now, globally, employee retention is hard. Getting people to just show up, to stay, is a difficulty that I think many people are experiencing all over the world. And so, but what I learned from one of my mentors and teachers just this last weekend, Sharon Oxidine, a native elder from North Carolina, she told her story, and her vision for what she wanted to create for herself and her community was so strong that as she did that journey, there were many people who resonated with her and fell off, from her own tribe to community members. And at any point when all these people just fell off for different reasons or wanted to go in a different direction, she did not let that discourage her or say, I should stop. There was this mindset in her. She altered me this weekend because she was talking about when your vision and purpose is so clear, you know that's your destiny. And there will be people who walk with you for different phases of that, right? And there will be people that come into your sphere who are resistant and fight it and say it's not working. It's not, And so one thing I've also seen from you is that when there's resistance, or when there's a bucking, or when someone doesn't quite get it or understand that it's as important, you're willing for people you hold the vision and you're willing to bring people along. So I just wanted to share, like, when you're trying to create something new and different, you're bringing in this mindset, for it is normal to have pushback, to have resistance, to have people try it and fall out. And then as you continue, we do more of our personal work, there's that resonance where the other people start to surround us who believe in our vision, who want to support us to carry that forward. So if there's any, wisdom around that resiliency of spirit you show when you have fall offs and when you're challenged.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear the group to hear that as well.
That's a great question. It is, I used to especially take it really personally when people left, right? Like, how did I not care for them in the way that they needed to be cared for to be here and to be a part of the team? That was a really challenging lesson for me to learn, that people will come and go and they will walk with you on part of the path. And it's okay to practice. It's okay for them to leave. I have to learn to practice non-attachment, that maybe they just needed this space and this platform for a part of their journey. And so it takes a lot of resiliency to make your peace with that as you're growing and as you're continuing to build your vision. For me, it's really been, I know I said this already, but I want to say it again. It's really been a practice of non-attachment, right? When I can come at it from the perspective of, I know why I'm doing this. I'm building a law firm to service small to medium-sized businesses, to provide them sophisticated legal counsel at a price that they can afford. And I'm building a firm that allows freedom and flexibility, that allows kindness, compassion, and vulnerability in the culture, that, lifts people up, that supports them and mentors them along their journey. As I'm building this, I'm doing it for me, and I'm doing it because I have the belief that this is something that's much needed in the marketplace. When people are struggling, we will mentor them. I have incredible loyalty. I will mentor them. I will help them along, what have you. But when they ultimately make the decision to leave, I've never had a bad situation. Trying to think through before I say never. I can't recall a bad situation with someone leaving. It usually leaves with a hug and, we wish you well, and, a follow-up lunch. Like, if this is not the place for you to work anymore, that's okay. Right? If you need to be at a place where you work more and make more money because that's what your family needs right now, we will love and support you in that journey, right? If there is another law firm out there that gives you something that we don't, and that's what you need in that moment, we can love and support you in that too. We hope to continue to have a relationship with you, right? I don't have to take it personally when people leave, because their needs are dynamic, just like my needs are dynamic. And so, supporting them in that journey, that was a real light bulb moment for me. We have clients that have alumni events for the employees that have left. And I really love that idea of continuing to bring people together that, at one point in time believed and gave to the company that you're building, to maintain those relationships. I think there's a lot of value in that for the people, for the business. As the business continues to grow, there's a lot of really great relationship that doesn't have to be lost when people leave.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's really important, to spend time on this, because when coaching leaders and teams, when someone leaves, it can really take the wind out of the sails of a culture. And so when you're building culture, creating that kind of mindset that people will come and go, we want to do our best while you're here, we wish you well, that type of mindset, that you're cared about, not just when you're in, but also it allows that kind of that ease and that non-attachment, but mostly kind of that enduring love, that abiding presence of love, that we're more than just our role. And I'd love to hear from both Dan and Sara. I'm reflecting on, because we're getting close to time, but I'm reflecting on a very powerful, one of our most powerful team interventions that we do with a group of people is to get them face to face in either a line or a circle. That means people who've had conflict, people who are best friends, people who don't know each other very well. And to have them get face to face, and looking each other in the eyes and speaking from the heart, coherent heart, so teaching coherence, and then having them look for on purpose the good in each other, the good for each other, and saying, thank you for that. I see this in you. It's called impact statements. So what you do makes this impact on me. And I see you, I'm with you, I appreciate you. And so It's always awkward at first, but any insights from either of you as we walked with your team, because this is the one thing we can encourage you as leaders to do, is to set up what we call these appreciation circles. And it's quarterly, and it seems weird, but once people get into it, it's so transformative, where people get face to face and you have a timer and it's just 2 or 3 minutes total. So I'd love to hear any insights on the impact of what we call, practices lead to transformation, right? Practices that shift your state lead to a transformation, creating empathy, bond, care, training our brain to look for the good. Because most people do not have that positivity bias, as you and Dan. I'd love to hear the impact of incorporating out of the box practices into your team, whether through offsite or one-on-ones, that can change things. So,
yeah, Dan, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I think it's important to note there's this concept called double entry bookkeeping, and it's basically this theory that we have 2 roles at work, where we're doing the job we're being paid for, and then we're also doing this job of managing our image and how we are perceived and whether we're doing good enough, right? It's the classic imposter syndrome. And so when we do practices that really allow ourselves to be seen, to be vulnerable, to be heard, to do the things that allow us to, kind of take down the mask, then all of a sudden trust goes through the roof. And, the practices that we love these at Moksha, because we know that this is what's needed in the world, is that we need to be able to see each other, right? To be able to feel each other and to know who we are at a real level. And this builds trust that we can take into relationships at work, to performance, and it gives a little more grace too. And so it was beautiful to witness this with Sarah's team, Stock Legal, as well.
Yeah, I love that. My feeling on this is that disconnected teams survive, but connected teams thrive. It's the difference between good and great, right? I mean, you can have a room full of people that are all working at their desks, that are tip-tap typing all day long, that don't say 2 words to each other, and they can get the work done and they can leave, right? But if you want to have an innovative, energetic team that is, going above and beyond for your clients, you've got to build connection and trust amongst the team. And in today's world, where so many people are remote, it is incredibly challenging to build that connection, right? To give people the opportunity to truly collaborate. And so that practice, Sheila, really made me get in touch with my humanity and touch the humanity in every other person that I had the opportunity to talk to. And I'm probably not using the right words, but at that level of human to human, I feel like that's where connection is built, right? It's not built in like saying good morning to the person sitting at the desk next to you when you walk in. It's connecting on that very deep human level, that allows you to really see each other, and more than see, but understand each other, right? Understand what motivates people, understand what their needs are, understand where they're at in life, understand how, what is their superpower, right? We were just talking about this the other day that, very few people are good at everything, right? But everybody has a superpower. And so how do you take that superpower and really give it an opportunity to shine inside an organization? Well, you can do all the testing in the world, and maybe one test will give you some insight into that person's superpower, but connecting with them on a human level, really seeing and understanding who they are and what motivates them, allows you access to their superpower in a way that I just haven't found. I think there are so many beautiful things that come out of that, along with, the reflection that it takes for me to think about that person. What am I truly grateful for? What is it that is so beautiful about them to me? It adds to my positivity bias, right? In a way that helps me love people more. But it allows me the opportunity to connect. And when we can truly connect, we thrive as a team.
I love that. One of the things we teach in science too is that it takes, like, this is from the Gottman Institute, but it takes five positive, not neutral, but five positive interactions just to buffer one negative to create that momentum that you're talking about. And anytime our ratio gets off, we start to see each other as an enemy or a potential threat, and we go into protection, and trust kind of goes down. And so when we incorporate as leaders, which I know you do, these authentic moments to share appreciation that are more than just thank you, but thank you because this is the impact that it made, you actually are changing the collective nervous system, right? Because your nervous system drives everything. And so again, it seems like we're just doing this at the surface level, but you're actually deeply affecting the unconscious material that our brain automatically stores. And so we do have to find time to create positivity, literally, in that workplace. Yeah. It does come from this genuine connection. And I can remember, seeing you get up with your hand on your heart and tell your story with vulnerability and ask for involvement and share the feedback, and that takes so much leadership courage. Most of the time, employees will say, I've never seen a leader get up and own their shadow, own their challenges. And that's hard to do without deep support. And so I just want to appreciate you for doing this hard work of personal transformation, and to not letting the ego come up, and to not giving up on your mission and your vision, and letting us be part of your journey, just kind of adding to that. So I want to also offer Dan, if there's anything you want to say, and then let Sara have the final close.
Yeah. So Sara, you said something earlier. Part of the main reason for building Stock Legal was that you wanted to create something that felt like an extension of yourself, right? And it just really makes me, wonder what the world would look like if more people worked at organizations and within roles that were an extension of themselves. And so thank you for being an inspiration of that, and being the leader that does that steps up to create more of what you want to see in the world.
Yeah, well, thank you both for that. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be on your podcast, to continue to be a part of this conversation. I think it's incredibly important, both personally and professionally. I think that it allows the world to continue to rise up and vibrate at a higher vibration. It allows people who, my hope is that the people who come into this office leave as happy, if not happier, on at least most days than when they arrived. And I am so grateful for Moksha and their participation in helping me on my journey to, build a stronger team, to continue to grow this firm. It's been, an incredible journey, and I know we have so much more to do. And your involvement has brought a richness to our connections that is fertile ground for what we're building next. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you for being on this podcast. Thank you, Dan, for your beautiful questions. Thank you for helping us kick off part of our dream, which is just to elevate the souls who have these beautiful hearts, who are working to create change. It's not easy work. It's hard work. It's imperfect, but it's worth doing, right? It's for the greater good, I think, to uplift all of humanity. So thank you so much. May you have a beautiful day. And till we meet again.
Yes.
All right. Take care.
Bye.